Welcome to the Human Experience Podcast, the only podcast designed to fuse your left and right brain hemispheres and feed it the most entertaining and mentally engaging topics on the planet. As we approach our ascent, please make sure your frontal, temporal and occipital lobes are in their full upright position. As you take your seat of consciousness, relax your senses and allow us to take you on a journey. We are the Intimate Strangers. Thank you for listening.
The human experience is 93 million miles away from the nearest rough turbulence, and we're making a 3.2 degree turn into Conspiracy Alley. My co-host, Dr. G, is riding shotgun. Our guest is Isaac Weishaupt. Isaac, welcome to HXP.
Hey, thanks. I'm very privileged to be on such a refined podcast as this. I listened to a few of your episodes, and like I kind of talked about with you guys offline, you guys are very much more highbrow than the typical stuff I get into with other shows and material. It's kind of a seedy, dark world that I deal with the conspiracy stuff. So.
Well, I will accept that compliment, man. I really appreciate that. I'm pretty entertained by the stuff that's on your website, actually, man. So if we could just dig right into if I have this right, these secret handshake motherfuckers, pardon my American, these secret handshaking motherfuckers are performing these occult rituals inside of our media, inside of the TV that we watch, inside of the music that we hear. What's going on here?
Yeah, so let me preface this a little bit so people don't think I'm in my mom's basement wearing a tinfoil hat. This is my hobby because and I'm like a full-time professional square that sits in a cubicle all day doing shit I don't want to do, right? And several years ago, I kind of got steered down this path of conspiracy theory and aliens, and for a long time, it was just kind of entertainment that kind of struck a nerve with me that in a weird way, it kind of made me feel more comfortable thinking there was like these aliens and this conspiracy out there because. And I've read some of the ideas behind that. It's kind of like it supports this idea that there is somebody in control of your life, and so I've read all the psychobabble bullshit about why I'm interested in that. But when it comes down to it, I think it's just interesting. And I'm going to fast forward through a bunch of years, and someone turned me on to David Icke, and he really blew my mind, and I really got into his stuff pretty deep. And the masses, the majority of people don't, they've never really sat through an 8-hour David Icke lecture or read his 1,000-page books, right? Right. And so I found myself translating this material to my friends and family, trying to explain, hey, check this out. There's fucking reptilian shapeshifters, Yeah. And and I see the reactions and I get it. And I'm not saying I believe there's reptilian shapeshifters, but there's enough grain of truth in it that I'm like, wow, that's kind of interesting and it's kind of creative how he came up with that, But so I was into all this stuff, and then I was in grad school, and I started a blog, right? And it started with, I kind of wanted to do something that was into my particular niche of interest, which was I was into rap music and horror films coming out, and a little bit of pop culture, sci-fi stuff, and a little bit of conspiracy. And over time, long story short, after about a year of that, I slowly started picking up people are interested in the conspiracy stuff. And I was getting lots of compliments like, hey, you're breaking down these conspiracies in a way that makes sense. And people were really digging it. So I was like, okay, cool. I'll kind of focus on that. And I found myself studying more of the occult, and it's kind of been a wild thing because now I'm on this journey that all the people that come to the website, I call them watchers for a lack of a better term, because the website's illuminatiwatcher.com. Mm-hmm. It's kind of like a community now where we're all kind of exploring these ideas and saying, hey, I saw this symbol over here in this movie, and people send me the email, and I'll be like, oh shit, look at that, and this isn't, I've seen enough of the amateur stuff online of example, when I think it was Peyton Manning, some football player, I don't watch football, but some guy took his helmet off, he had an imprint that was a triangle on his head, and it was a meme that went online on Twitter, oh, Peyton Manning, Illuminati, ha ha ha, this isn't stupid shit like that. This is, I'm watching music videos and films, and, I'm not saying, most of the time, there's a reasonable, rational explanation for it, and the more I learn about this, the more the posts and the analysis makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
And, if you go to my website, you can look. I've got posts from 3 years ago when I started the thing that are still up there, and they're god awful. They're terrible to read, and I want to someday just take them down, but I don't have the time to.
Well, the idea that I get is that by using this symbology in television and the things that we absorb, there is a conscious mind and then your subconscious mind. So if you're using these symbols to affect the subconscious mind, you're somehow affecting human consciousness in some way. I mean, is that the general idea of this?
Yeah, right. So the idea that I subscribe to is backed up by several kind of philosophers and PhDs that know their shit, like Dr. Joe Dispenza, and quantum physics and stuff. And it talks about how the brain works. The brain basically is just a pattern identifier. I don't want to insult the brain, but like the way we use it is from birth we're fed a bunch of horse shit and say here's this thing that happens, and you set up patterns in your mind. So like by the time you're 15, your brain is full of like when this thing happens to you, expect this result. And that's why a lot of people suffer with different personality issues their whole life, is because they don't ever break that original programming.
You're saying like the standard narrative of like get a job, get married, that kind of thing?
Yeah, that too, right? Everything our society is kind of built upon.
Have you noticed that there has been a sort of resurgence of this idea of the Illuminati? Just because pre 9/11 or so, no one was really talking about the Illuminati. I mean, it wasn't this household term 10, 11, 12 years ago, pre 9/11. So now it's kind of comical to me how many people are making fun of it, talking about it.
Yeah, so if you look back, in hindsight, you look back, there was like a few pivotal moments in society. First one that kind of stands out is 1947, the mid-40s there. We had, World War II going on with Hitler, and he was into all this occult stuff. And at the same time, we had, Jack Parsons and L. Ron Hubbard. You probably recognize those names. They were performing magic rituals to evoke these kind of entities from another dimension at the same time. And then right after that, we had the Roswell UFO crash. So in 1947, there was all this occult activity that was kind of unprecedented for several hundred years. Then we had 1963 with JFK's assassination and the whole 60s movement, which the more you research that, you've got all these ties to the CIA and the Laurel Canyon stuff and the hippie movement with the MK Ultra mind control stuff. Basically, there was this whole period of the 60s that there's tons of conspiracy theories about, right? And then the third major shift is 9/11, because you had the whole truther movement that believes the 9/11 stuff was fake. Now, couple all that stuff with the internet, where any Yahoo can get a website. I did it. And you can really put together a message that a lot of people can kind of glom onto and read. And my thing is, if it didn't have some kind of truth to it, like, people wouldn't be as interested in it as they are.
Right.
So can we kind of like break down the thread between all these different things you're saying? So there is the Illuminati, as far as like Adam Weishaupt in the Bavarian Illuminati. I don't know much about that, but what is the distinction between these groups, like the Freemasons, the Illuminati, the Skull and Bone societies, the Rosicrucians? Like, are they all together, or who's the conductor behind the scenes pulling the strings here?
Yeah, that's the $1 million question. They're all connected. It's basically like a big spider web, and if you want to look at, try to like have a brief history, you could go back to the beginning of time, and there's a certain kind of theory line that the Anunnaki, these alien races from the planet Nibiru, came here and seeded humans to make them their slaves. Like,
what do you believe? What do you actually believe?
So the further back it goes, the more distorted it gets. So I can't really commit to like the super like hundreds of thousands of years ago stuff, but I do believe that there's lots of talk of this golden age that occurred, and
like Zachariah Sitchin and his work on like gold, and is that what you're getting to?
That's the Anunnaki kind of theory that aliens came here and started us, and then there's the biblical kind of theory that the Watchers, the angels, came in and seeded this Nephilim alien race, and then there's this other idea of these reptilian shapeshifters. But either way, no matter which branch you go down, you end up in the cradle of civilization there in Mesopotamia, which is kind of where everything kicked off with the Sumerians. And they were kind of the first ones that we know of in recorded history that started like these communities and actual inventions. And supposedly they were given alien, technology and knowledge.
So they had secret societies from the get-go, is what you're saying?
Right, because back in the day, they used to, like the people, so like the rock stars of those days were, priests and sorcerers and the people that held the knowledge.
Right.
And it only passed through, power was knowledge much more so then than it is now, and it only passed through certain bloodlines, which supposedly tie into whoever seeded this whole thing, whether you want to believe the Anunnaki or the reptilians or the Nephilim.
So there is a bloodline system in play at work, Rothschilds, Bilderbergers, like all these like different groups that are kind of pushing social agendas, events, economics, and your site focuses on the media aspect of this and how we are being programmed by what we watch, what we see on TV in an occult, ritualistic way, right?
Precisely, yeah. The divine right to rule. That's why England's got the monarchy there. It's that they think because of their bloodline they're superior to the rest of us. And if you look back at the Hermetic mystery schools of like ancient Egypt, and which bled over into Greece and Rome, that the people that were allowed in those schools to get that knowledge were only certain people, which are arguably this quote unquote Illuminati bloodline. And you can go to Washington D.C. and you can see the influence that the Egyptians and the Romans have in America.
Right.
Because and that's where I'm kind of going with this kind of timeline is you've got this knowledge that was handed down to certain people. Then we go into the 1700s with the Age of Enlightenment stuff, and that's when the real Illuminati subgroup came about. Adam Weishaupt, like you were talking about, and this is the movement that really sparked things, and that's what started the whole fight against the church. And
so what happened there?
Well, so they pushed. So that was like the beginning of these ideals. These kind of, I guess back then they were liberal ideas, these ideas of equality, democracy, separation of the church and state, freedom and liberty. And this was like the late 1700s. So you can see how, I think it was the same year that the Illuminati, the Bavarian Illuminati group was formed, was the same year that the Declaration of Independence was signed. And you look at the founding fathers and most of them were Freemasons. Because the claim is that Adam Weishaupt was kind of driven away from his homeland there, and he sprouted up like subgroups within the Freemasons. And anyway, so things get how this goes. This conspiracy game gets kind of really confusing quick, but
slippery slope.
Yeah. So basically, you got he's just another part of this kind of secretive group of bloodline group that is pushing this message out, and at some point he went into the Freemasons, and then they became our founding fathers, and that's why America is like the big project, right? That's why when the world talks about entertainment, we dominate in America. The people in other countries watch our movies and listen to our music. It's not the other way around generally,
right?
And you look at the symbolism of stuff that you can see in DC, like I was talking about, and this kind of supports that idea because people want to pretend we're this Christian-based, God-fearing country to begin with, but that's absolutely not the case. There's not statues of Jesus Christ in Washington D.C. There's obelisks, you know.
So what is the purpose of this? Like, what are they trying? What is the agenda? What's the goal? What's happening?
See, and that's where I was kind of at that's kind of the stage I was at on the website a couple years ago. I didn't really get it, but then I got into this other theorist, Freeman Fly, and he broke down the magical orders within, like these secret societies that how all these like secret mysticism teachings, which includes like the Kabbalah and this Tree of Life stuff, and different forms of paganism and Wicca, you know, and it kind of, the list goes on and on. There's like these, but it all kind of ties together. It's kind of like the same principle that they all have, and they believe that you can shape the universe towards your will if you conduct certain rituals and use certain symbols, which is why we see all these symbols over and over and over again.
So you think they're protecting that information more so than allowing things to get out, it seems?
Yeah, I think, you know, there's a certain amount of speculation that has to come into play at some point. You know, things got driven underground, and all we can really do is observe it and, you know, read through some of the literature that we see. Like, for example, Aleister Crowley seems to be tied in with everything. He's the British occultist of the late, you know, 1800s, early 1900s. He's pretty much hailed by all, you know, rock stars, and any kind of good occultist has his roots with Aleister Crowley. The
most evil man that ever lived.
Yeah, the wicked beast or whatever.
The wicked
you know?
beast, yeah.
Yeah, so what all he was doing was he was rehashing all these old kind of the secret knowledge. He was rehashing it and kind of expanding upon it. That's why he's revered so much, is because he took all these ideas of being able to channel different entities from another dimension, and he did that he did that in Egypt, where he talked to this spirit called Awas that dictated to him this whole Thelema religion that he came up with. And, you know, if you look at all his stuff, it all ties together. Aleister Crowley stuff ties in with the Freemasons, which ties into the Ordo Templi Orientis. They're kind of all one and the same.
Right, the OTO.
In a sense, yeah, because and a lot of the stuff, like I have to go off of what I'm reading, and I don't read through like the super shady materials online that you can tell is obviously not, like, there's no study into it. You can read through some of their books and read it for yourself, like Kenneth Grant, and he started the Typhonian OTO. It's like a branch off of Aleister Crowley, and he talks about channeling these alien entities, which is a very common thing that we're seeing nowadays in all forms of.
But you're not saying that Crowley's like definitely involved with these Freemasons or Illuminati. You're just saying that the concept of this deity worship or getting into this mystical realm is something that certain groups are trying to vie for.
Yeah, that's what it seems like. It seems so. Like, I explore a lot of the music industry stuff, and I put together a whole book of just rappers and pop singers, and how they all have the same pattern where they talk about how they have different personalities and spirits that take over and alter egos. I mean, they're not all schizophrenic, right? So why are they saying this stuff?
Wow, yeah. So is that part of the Monarch programming that they're receiving? I mean, I've seen your videos, man, and it's just so interesting that these people who are super rich, super famous, are talking about basically selling their souls in blood to Satan. And I mean, that's a bit strange, man. It's weird.
It's super weird. So that whole idea of, you know, selling the soul, that's the Faustian bargain. But what's even stranger is that, like, that whole blood sacrifice idea. But I talk about how, just like I talked about a few minutes ago, how you look at the timeline of all these ancient cultures and how we've kind of formed this into this Illuminati bloodline. The ancient cultures used to sacrifice humans all the time to this Moloch deity or Chalk, or you fill in the blank. They would typically sacrifice people in order to appease these gods, to either get it to rain for the crops, or in some cases make it stop raining because it was flooding the crops. And that was all they really knew how to do, hundreds of years ago. So they used to do this all the time, and we're led to believe that we're more advanced than that now. But my argument is there's a subgroup of people that are still hooked into this ancient tradition. And I can back that up with the Bohemian Grove stuff, where, in Northern California, there's this camp that all the elites of the world, not all the elites, but I guess certain privileged elites in entertainment and business and politics, they meet up every year and have a little boys camp, and they do this ritual to this giant stone owl called the cremation of care, where they take a quote unquote mock child and sacrifice it to this deity
in effigy.
It sounds like ritual magic. I mean, that's what.
Yeah. So, we're supposed to believe that human sacrifice isn't an option, and I don't know why. I don't know. Like, it's not like we're above killing some fucking people. You know what I mean? Like, we go to war all the time. You know what I mean? It's just murder packaged differently.
Well, blood is the ambrosia of the gods, so to speak, and all those rituals that they talk about. Is there's something inherent about the energy of human blood and the sacrifice that you mentioned before? Have you ever read a book? I think it was called "Die, Sheep Will Die" or something like that. It was this guy that went on this kind of rant online. He had this PDF that was floating, but in the beginning of it, it mentioned what you were saying earlier about how if we were this monkey species or in these tribes in the Mesopotamian area, right, and we're just learning, math and astrology and astronomy and things like that, and you're this group that knows when there's going to be, say, a eclipse, and you have that information, you're going to use that to control the minds of the other people. Do you think that's how it started?
Yeah, they used to follow that Hermetic Maximum of as above, so below, where they think that things that happen in the cosmos and the stars, the movement of the different astrological signs and constellations and whatnot, they believe that was tied into what they did on the microcosm on the Earth, and vice versa. So and this is an idea that I supported with, there's a guy, Robert Hooke, who used to, he studied this thing called cymatics, where he would take flour, more or less, and put it on a vibrating plate. And the frequency of that vibration would produce certain patterns. And that's where we get this idea that, like, frequency and waveform vibrations, which aren't tangible things, they're not material things, they can cause different changes and effects in the material world. It kind of gets out into some woo-woo stuff, but I went to college for 8 years, and I've got a master's of engineering, and I studied a lot of physics, quantum physics, and that stuff really blew my mind. This is before I started the website. Like the whole idea that we our retinas and our corneas are lenses that actually invert everything. So the world is actually upside down, but our brain processes it and reverts it so that we're not confused when we move around. Like that's some crazy stuff.
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
And you look at all this quantum physics stuff and all these ideas that things are connected, even though they appear they're not, and things are there until you look at them, then they're not there. And
it's insane.
It is. It kind of makes you crazy a little bit. Like, dude, like we really don't know what's going on here, and
it's all happening right now as we speak. Like just complexity upon complexity.
Yeah, and it's tough because I like the movie, like The Matrix. The Matrix films were really good for exploring these kind of ideas, and it all ties into like Plato's allegory of the cave and stuff. Right. And it's this idea that like we could be living in a kind of holographic universe, which that's debatable whether or not, but like there's legitimate scientists that argue this, smarter than me, but
That's a good segue, actually, because I really want to bring up your work on Stanley Kubrick, because he, to me, is I admittedly am a bit obsessed with the movies that he made, and I just find him so interesting, and he seems to be the most prolific at really demonstrating these symbols in a visual way that is highly complex, and it's very immersive. I mean, do you agree? He brings you into it's almost ritual watching the movie itself.
Yeah, I agree with you totally. Like I said, like before I was even into any of this stuff, before I was even in conspiracies, when I was a kid, I watched Clockwork Orange and I was hooked, man. I was and I couldn't explain why. Like I just loved the movie. Then I watched Full Metal Jacket when I was a kid, and I loved that movie too. And The Shining. But then, I think I was like maybe 20 when I saw, maybe 22, I don't know, when I saw Eyes Wide Shut. And I was kind of like, I didn't really like the story, but the film had me hooked just like the other two Kubrick films. And I couldn't put my finger on it. I was just like, man, I really like this Kubrick guy. He makes some cool films, And then I got into all this conspiracy stuff and looking for symbolism. And, Jay Weidner, I give him the credit for even piecing this together, because the Shining stuff and the Apollo landing theories that he come up with is what kind of got me interested in Kubrick, and I started looking into like 2001: A Space Odyssey, and I'm finding like this kind of underlying theme that ties in with all these films, and they're the same exact topics that I cover in entertainment industry and other, music videos and films. It's this idea that there's all these occult concepts and symbols and principles, and if you watch his films, you can see them in these films. So yeah, like I agree. Like I'm like, I've seen his films like multiple times, and I'm not really like that with films. Like I typically, like, once is plenty for me. But
I mean, Kubrick seemed like he was definitely playing the long game. I mean, if you watch just the way that he released the movies in the order that he released them, they all kind of tie together. And there is, I mean, you guys listening can go watch them for yourselves after hearing this, but I mean, there is definitely a message, a subtext that he is kind of pulling you towards or asking you to like look at. And I mean, the stuff with the moon landing and maybe he was hired to do that. I mean, even without that, wow, man, there is some really deep occult stuff happening in Kubrick's work. I mean, what have you noticed about Kubrick that fascinates you the most?
What fascinates me the most? Oh boy, I think the fact that we see those same, like, for instance, Clockwork Orange, it's pretty much like an MK Ultra mind control film. Eyes Wide Shut, it's about sex, magic, orgies, and rituals, and this kind of like dark satanic underbelly of the Illuminati. And 2001 with its Saturn symbolism, it's too well orchestrated.
It's blatant almost.
Yeah, it's very blatant. Like the fact that like in 2000, like when I first found out that the monolith in 2001 was the same dimensions as the movie screen, that kind of blows my mind, because they really had to go through some painstaking labor probably to make that so, and I'm sure Kubrick stuck it to him to make sure they did it.
What do you think is the most fascinating part of Kubrick's work that you find the most interesting?
I think it's fascinating how he was able to weave these occult symbols through all of his films, from 2001 with its Saturn symbolism, and then A Clockwork Orange with its mind control symbols, and The Shining with the fake. The Shining actually had several different kind of hidden messages within it. But then his final film, Eyes Wide Shut, which a lot of people really trashed when it came out, that's arguably the film that got him killed. With he depicted these satanic sex ritual which is arguably sex magic or just some kind of satanic ritual. Because they filmed it in one of the mansions of the Rothschild family, which, as we were talking about earlier, is allegedly one of the bloodlines of the Illuminati.
Right.
Was there anything with an artificial intelligence? I know he died before him, and I know Spielberg picked up the latter half of that, but is there a clear message of some kind of symbology that he wanted in artificial intelligence, or the message that he wanted there?
Yeah, I think he was working on AI for like a lot of years beforehand, trying to like doctor it up somehow, and then when he actually started working on it, but then he died. But if that would fall right in with my kind of overarching theory of where they want to take all this, is this transhumanism movement. And a lot of people don't see it coming. In fact, even when when I was typing my first book up where I talked about this, Microsoft Word doesn't recognize the word transhumanism, and 5 years from now it might, because right now it's not like in everyone's vocabulary, but it's this idea that we're going to approach what is dubbed the singularity, where artificial intelligence will surpass the human mind capabilities, and that's when it's kind of like a done deal. And you could argue what that means for us as the human race. We could either be taking advantage of that and living these super awesome immortal lives, or it's the Matrix, where we're going to go to war with the robots and they're going to win, and now we're just energy sources.
Yikes. Yeah, that's hardcore, man. I mean, the transhumanism thing, I definitely find a little bit disturbing. I mean, this idea. But, I mean, if you've got all this wealth and power and money and control, the first thing that you're worrying about is dying. I mean, you don't want to age. You want that forever. So, kind of fits.
Yeah, look at our culture, how much emphasis we put on looking young, and that's just getting worse and worse. You see more and more plastic surgery, and the entertainers of today are, teenagers. It's kind of weird. I remember when I was a kid, like, I don't know, the music groups were in their 30s or whatever, and now, the people that are famous for music are like teenagers.
It's like an anti-death cult almost.
Yeah, it's this obsession of getting younger. And another idea you could look at with this transhumanism agenda is that these people make these Faustian bargains with the devil, and they sell their soul to the devil to get fame and fortune. And, the payback for that is when they die, they go to hell, their soul goes to hell, right? Well, if they can master transhumanism, they can arguably live forever and never have to repay that debt. Now, wow. This is kind of, unfortunately, this is where I see everything going, and it kind of freaks me out because, like when I studied electronics engineering and math, I had a math minor, and we looked a lot at, we were plotting curves for different things, like, for example, Moore's law, which says the number of transistors that fit on a chip doubles every 2 years, roughly. And that's an exponential curve, which means it increases very rapidly. But humans, our mind thinks, when we predict things, we can only predict linearly. Like we say, if this, then that. And that's pretty much the extent of what we naturally think of. So we have this technology that's increasing at this exponential rate. Meanwhile, here we are just thinking linearly, and this singularity is around the corner now. They're saying that this moment where the artificial intelligence takes over is anywhere between 2030 and 2040. And, it's to the point where in modern program management and business practices, they're trying to come up with these, like when they come up with like their acquisition life cycle plan and all this, they're trying to come up with ways to accommodate future technologies into strategies, because, nowadays, like if it takes you, 2 years to field an entire platform of whatever it is you're working with, 2 years from now, technology is going to be, like I said, increasing exponentially, and the things you're working on might be useless. Just 10 years ago, there was no such thing as an iPhone. Most people were still using dial-up internet. And it's just going to get worse and worse. And no one's really talking about this. And most people, the masses, don't have no idea this thing is coming. So it makes me wonder, like, why is this being kept so quiet? And I think it's because the Illuminati, or these privileged bloodlines that, like you said, have all the money. That's the only thing you can't buy is eternal life. They're already working on what they call mind files, and basically the idea is that, everyone's got a Facebook page, right? So the idea is that you can take a person, you can figure out a person's personality and make your Facebook profile like this digital avatar, like on the Wii. I don't know if you have a Nintendo Wii where you can make a little character, right? Mm-hmm. The idea is that once the computing power is there, you could sit down at a computer, open up this software, answer, 2,000 questions about what you like, what you dislike, your memories, how you feel, who you like. And they can create this digital avatar version of you that's so real that if someone was Skyping or instant messaging, they wouldn't be able to tell the difference.
Plot twist: we're in a computer right now, and we've forgotten. And then we're going to build a computer that we can house our other. So it's like a computer within a computer. The Saturn cult, the Saturn idea, like the symbols. It really looks like Freemasonry is like the symbol for Saturn or something. How does that all tie in?
That's one of the more mysterious things. I'm still trying to kind of decode a lot of that, but basically, if you read some of the occult literature from, Satanists, they'll talk about the Brotherhood of Saturn, for example. It's like another one of these magical orders, and they worship Saturn because, like, back in the day, Saturn was the outermost planet, and that was kind of the outcast of all the planets. And, Satanists and most left-hand pathers, they worship Satan and non-conformist things because they simply don't want to conform to what society tells them to believe in. And, this is why stores like, Hot Topic are so popular, and all these dark goth kids are all around us because they're tired of hearing the Christian message or whatever they think is being forced down their throats. So back in the day, back when they used to worship stars and planets, the occultists used to worship Saturn. Now, there's different theories on why that is. Well, one of them, which is kind of hard to understand, but they claim that Saturn used to be our original sun. It was like a brown dwarf star, and we used to live on our planet Earth in basically a sheath of the brown star's light, basically, and it was like a purple kind of haze, right? Like Jimi Hendrix. And this idea was actually supported by a friend of Albert Einstein's, Velikovsky, where he says Saturn used to kind of be in the place where it was, right adjacent to the Earth, and then it got whacked by something and then got shifted out into the, outer planets, and then the moon showed up right there, and that's how the moon got here.
Are you familiar with Jordan Maxwell's work about the Saturn cult?
No, you're the second. I've heard of Jordan Maxwell. You're the second person that actually said you need to check out his Saturn stuff. So
it's crazy. It's crazy.
I'll have to really get on that. Yeah, there's this Saturn stuff's kind of weird to me because it belonged to the it used to be the planetary force behind the zodiac of the Aquarius. And if you look at the Age of Aquarius movement, they think that the Age of Aquarius is either upon us right now or it's coming really soon. But they believe that that's going to be this new shift of mankind where we're going to be, it's going to be an age of technology, which is precisely what we're talking about with this singularity stuff. And the Age of Aquarius is depicted with the water carrier. And that's arguably why we're seeing these ritual sacrifices of Whitney Houston and Bobby Christina. Philip Seymour Hoffman died in a bathroom. And they died on he died on Imbolg, which is like a witch sacrifice night. So yeah, there's like this tie-in with this Age of Aquarius, and there's whole like books dedicated to this movement of the Aquarians and how that's the Illuminati's thing. Like they started the hippie movement, and all this stuff.
Well, the Mayans used to have this idea that at the moment of death, there was this massive energy transfer of like when consciousness moves out of the body and disconnects and the physical body dies, the Mayans thought that you could harness that energy, and that's why they were doing all these sacrifices. So maybe these people who are kind of running things are using that same idea that creating this ritual sacrifice gives them more power.
That's an interesting thought. Aleister Crowley called it the ultimate orgasm, death. That is,
le petit mort, the little death they call it.
Oh shit, you're on some next level stuff, bro.
I want some French next level shit.
So like they think that all same thing with like the sex orgies, like they think the orgasm brings about a certain energy field that they could manipulate to do whatever it is they do, channels demons, I don't know. I've never been in a magical order, but I'm just reading, the stuff that they put out. And that's what it says. So
we were talking, Xavier and I were talking about this the other day about, what if the next big paradigm shift that comes out of, say, quantum physics is basically like the next, like the world's not flat, or the atomic bomb is that there are hyperdimensional beings and they have they want something to do with the material realm. They want something to do with this physical embodiment, and that there's like people in league with these constructs that are out in another dimension, and they're at war right now in our realm.
Yeah, that's some scary stuff there. These occultists believe it. Like I was saying with the Typhonian OTO, they purposely try to channel these entities into our dimensions, so they believe it. You look at different sigils that they use, and these sigils, they're supposed to evoke this Lord of the Abyss that they talk about on the dark side of the Kabbalah tree of life. And these occult practitioners, they use these sigils and symbols to kind of call upon this Lord of the Abyss for different purposes that they deem important. And they think that they're going to be able to do this by like what they say, like fusing the X with the O is what's going to help evoke this beast. And I point out all these images that you are finding of the X over top of the O, like X-Men, Xbox, Russell Brand show Brand X.
Wow.
Ariana Grande's latest video, I saw it. And part of it, like I'll be the first to admit, I'm looking for these patterns. But why the hell do I keep seeing them?
Chris Brown's latest album, I think, was X also. Right.
There's several albums. There's Ed Sheeran's got an album that's got a big X. It's supposed to be called Multiply, but all that's on it is a big X. Like I said, Chris Brown, Kylie Minogue has an album called X. The list goes on. And so there's this obvious thing going on with the X. And basically you can claim that this is some occult stuff that they're trying to push. And the idea that makes the most sense to me is actually from a girl I was talking to who's a regular on the website. She says she used to study witchcraft, and she's really concerned with what's going on in the world right now. And she's not nutty by any means, but she said that, the reason we're seeing these symbols is because things are happening on the occult and the dark side. Meanwhile, we're being, pretty much distracted with you name it. And all these things are happening, and they're accelerating, and they're surrounding us with these symbols, because the more that they can throw out there of these symbols, the more energy it gives to these demon spirits or aliens or whatever you want to call it to come into our dimension.
It seems like spiritual warfare, man. Like, I mean, if our souls are, the currency of this war, it's kind of questionable who's winning right now, just because, I mean, most people aren't asking questions. They're not wondering what is going on. And there is this resurgence of this wake up movement, and people are starting to, I guess, wake up a little bit. But is it enough? I mean, and with these people who can control media, I mean, it's very hard to determine what the long game agenda is for these people that control everything.
Yeah, that's, and that's what's kind of crazy is I'm actually a Eastern Orthodox Christian, and I'm not a good one by any means, and I've always stood by the firm stance that like I've been like, this website where I talk about conspiracies, I'm not going to like bring Christianity into it. Like, most of these people that are into this stuff, it's always like they're over the top with their Christian message and their Bible verses they post, and I've always kind of been turned off by that because I'm kind of like, you know what, man, like leave your do your preaching somewhere else. Like I'll go to my church, you do go to yours, And I've always kind of been, like because I never regularly attended, and in the last few years I've been more regular with it. But the more I'm learning about this, the more it's kind of solidifying my belief in Christianity, because I'm like, dude, like all this stuff was predicted and talked about, and we're going through it, and like you said, it's a spiritual battle for our souls, and I feel like most people are losing because they're distracted with the Illuminati's agenda of football and TMZ and Kim Kardashian's ass,
So it begs the question though, Terence McKenna said that conspiracy theories are like a systemological and epistemological cartoon about reality. So it almost seems like the truth seems to be more terrifying that no one is in control, and that it's all kind of one giant game of follow the leader and there's no leader, and really no one's holding the puppet strings except maybe like dynamic systems and chaos. I mean, does that seem to be more likely a possibility, or how does that gel with you?
That's a great point.
Yeah, I'm not. It's funny you say that. I just started getting into some of the Terence McKenna and this Discordianism topic because I don't know a lot about it, and it's the idea that chaos is like kind of the real religion and the real truth about what's going on, and we as humans can't handle the idea that there's not someone controlling everything, and it's really interesting stuff.
It seems the way things are playing out is there's really no gray area. It's almost like it's binary. There either is something in control here, or things are playing out that our quote unquote destiny as a species has this narrative unfolding that doesn't really have any semblance of logic to it. It's almost like dreamlike and fanciful, this human story that we're seeing right now.
Yeah, what freaks me out is there's all this talk of like these ancient civilizations that had this high technology that just disappeared off the face of the earth, like Atlantis and Lemuria and arguably some of ancient Egypt stuff. And it kind of freaks me out because like we're headed to a point where now they're saying like, oh, the computers are going to be smarter than us, and this might be a wrap for us as humans. And then meanwhile, the whole climate change thing's going on, and it kind of makes me wonder, like, are we just on this repetitive cycle, and like this shit's all going downhill in the next 100 years, and then 4,000 years from now, our culture will be up to our point of knowledge, and they'll be like, hey, look at this little square iPhone looking thing, you know what I mean?
Well, I guess what I'm getting at is like, do you think that us as humans, like we almost need this construct of an Illuminati to kind of allay our fears about how truly random and directionless things are? And like, despite our best efforts, Mother Nature really doesn't give a flying 747 fuck about like 7 Jewish bankers in a bunker underneath the World Trade Center who are like meticulously crafting some tenuous version of reality.
I mean, I guess it could go either way. I mean, I guess this is just highly entertaining. And when you see, I mean, it doesn't really matter. And I think that that's a big proponent of this whole thing, is that we give it our energy, and by giving it our energy, we're somehow giving these rituals that they're performing power. So it's like when you see the fucking Super Bowl, or when the Super Bowl comes on, don't watch it. Turn your TV off. Fuck that shit. I mean, why? Why would you want to be part of this large game that these people are playing?
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it. And I used to be a real cynical. I mean, I'm fairly cynical still, but like that movie Idiocracy, like I was like, yes, that's it. Like that's where we're headed, you know. And but now I'm kind of like, people need to unwind. Like we've all been set up in like the system's pretty well stacked against us. Like everyone's got to have a dual income household, and people work their asses off at these stressful jobs, and they come home and they just want to unwind and like watch some bullshit to entertain them. So like I get that because I'm right there with them. I worked all day today, and I'm like fuck, I just want to watch dual survival. That's the Illuminati wins when we do that, when we just give up and not talk about this stuff because I wholeheartedly, absolutely 100% believe something is going on because I'm seeing these symbols and everything.
Yeah.
And these same people that are pushing these symbols are the ones that are, popular in supposed pop culture, like Ariana Grande, like nothing against her, but like, I don't know, like a lot of people can sing, I've seen America's Got Talent and, the American Idol show. Like there's tons of people that can sing. What makes her special? Well,
bitch can sing though.
Yeah, actually, that's a bad example. She can sing. Bad example. I'll give you that. But certain artists, like they push these symbols over and over again, and I'm like, why is this person so famous and on top of the charts all the time? I don't think their music's that good, but
yeah,
I don't know.
Yeah, and then when you start to fall off out of favor with this group of people, suddenly you end up dead, or your career gets ruined, or something happens to your name, or I don't know, man. It's really interesting. But Isaac, this hour flew by, man. Like you're a really cool cat. It's highly interesting work. Is there anything that you wanted to kind of get out? Any message? Anything you got to say to the people listening right now?
No, man. I mean, go to IlluminatiWatcher.com and you can sign up for I got a free email newsletter. And you could basically just get on that list, and because I send out like monthly, like here's the most recent bullshit that I found, but yeah, like I honest to God feel like if we can kind of spread this message, I feel like the more people that are aware of this, the more it might foil these attempts of this dark future that they've got laid out for us.
I agree, man. Dr. G, you got anything else for our guest?
I mean, as dark as the future is, at least we'll have Ariana Grande and Chris Brown in loop on the background all the time. So,
all right, guys. Well, thanks for listening. This is The Human Experience. Get to Isaac's work at IlluminatiWatcher.com. Thank you so much for listening. It's a wrap.